en dos, en uno. En dos,
Desde la
en uno.
Uniagustiniana les doy un saludo de bienvenida y a la vez apertura
En dos,
a este Congreso
en uno.
Internacional onceavo de los Estudios Agustinianos. Y a la vez apertura a este Congreso Internacional onceavo de los Estudios Agustinianos. Importantísimo. Y a la vez apertura a este Congreso Internacional onceavo de los Estudios Agustinianos. Importantísimo. Y a la vez apertura a este Congreso Internacional onceavo de los Estudios Agustinianos. Importantísimo. Y a la vez apertura a este Congreso Internacional onceavo de los Estudios importante nos brinda la oportunidad de entrelazarnos con otros países internacionales para que nos conozcan, para que estemos siempre dispuestos en esa apertura. En este congreso quiero dar unas palabras de nuestro padre San Agustín, sacado del libro de las Confesiones. Hemos culminado un mes agustiniano profundo en la alabanza y en la plegaria. Dice San Agustín, y nos puede servir como alabanza: peregrino y enfermo vuelvo a ti, Dios mío, cansado de peregrinar fuera y agobiado por el peso de mis males. He experimentado que lejos de tu presencia no hay refugio seguro, ni satisfacción que dure, ni deseo que dé fruto, ni bien alguno que sacie los deseos del alma que creaste. Aquí estoy pobre y hambriento, Dios de mi salud. Ábrame las puertas de tu casa. Perdóname, recíbeme, sáname de todas mis enfermedades. Úngeme con el óleo de tu gracia y dame el abrazo de paz que prometiste al pecador arrepentido. Oh verdad, oh belleza infinita, amable, que tárdete a mí, hermosura siempre antigua y siempre nueva, que tarde te conocí. Qué desdichado fue el tiempo en que no te amé ni conocí. Del libro Las Confesiones. Nuevamente, bienvenidos a nuestros expositores y que compartamos esta jornada en este Congreso Internacional de los Estudios Agustinianos. Que Dios nos bendiga e ilumine siempre nuestras mentes y nuestros corazones.
¿Listo, Fernando? Profe Fernando.
Sí.
Profe, por favor, activa tu micrófono.
Dear all, good morning from this side of the world. Sí. Dear all, good morning from this side of the world and good afternoon. Lo tengo activo. Lo tengo activo.
Sí, señor, va bien.
and good afternoon on the other side of the Atlantic. I am Fernando Sanchez. I am the Dean of the Faculty of Humanities from Uniagustiniana. Thank you very much for your support to this initiative in this unusual pandemic time. Your effort has resulted in this beautiful reality, which is our 11th Congress of Augustinian Studies. I invite you to live in God's hand this moment in all our Congress by saying the prayer the Lord Jesus taught us. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much.
¿Listo, Leonardo?
Ok, gracias. Bueno, buenos días para todos y bienvenidos a este congreso. Good morning and thank you for connecting with us today. We are very glad to open a set of online conferences around Augustinian thought. These conferences have been organized by the School of Humanities, Social Sciences and Education at Augustinian University and the Augustinian University Press here in Bogota, Colombia. Our times have an urgent need to proclaim the sense of truth. Without this core value, human freedom, justice, and dignity may disappear. There is a strong academic movement that denies some undisputable truths and state they are non-existent. However, they do exist, and we see them every day. We know about principles precisely because of their opposites. Through lies, we recognize the truth. Through oppression, we identify freedom. Through what is unfair, we acknowledge justice. Our International Congress on Augustinian Studies looks forward for continuing reflecting about the excluded, the marginalized, and the neglected. In previous years, our conferences have addressed peace, the environment, education, and migrations. This year's edition, although the event will be carried out in a different way, the Congress has been prepared to understand the Augustinian thought in a time of lockdown, social isolation, and great care for myself and the others. And it not only includes our families, but also the human race, Mother Nature, and all God has created for us. We have prepared 7 online conferences that will be held during the upcoming 4 days, and will address these and other issues. Today, we will start our online meetings or presentations, and we will discuss about the value of truth and the opposition to lies. From Augustine reflections, this is an input, a necessary input to build inner peace and social harmony. Therefore, in the following presentation, we will reflect on this topic for about 30 minutes. Then we will expect to have 10 extra minutes to answer possible questions from our audience. You can make those questions through our YouTube online chat, and our lecturer will be more than happy to answer them. To start, I have the pleasure to introduce Dr. Makiko Sato. She will share her presentation from the beautiful island of Hawaii under the title, How Do We Use Our Words in the World Where Lies Are Rampant? From Augustine's Argument Online. Professor Makiko Sato is a research fellow of Tokyo Kagoshima University in Japan. She's an expert researcher on St. Augustine thought, particularly on the relationship between Augustine's language theory and anthropology. Her recent studies focus on the concept of femininity in the biblical exegesis of late antiquity. So with no more to say, I would like to welcome Professor Makiko on the screen. Professor, it is a real pleasure to have you here with us today. Welcome.
Thank you. Please allow me to express my thanks for your invitation to join in this Congress. I am glad to share some thoughts based on Augustine's words. I suppose that many of you have gained insight through your own experiences during this pandemic. As for me, I migrated from Japan to the US 5 months ago when the situation was becoming more serious. Many things that I sent from home were lost due to the confusion with the shipping companies. Important issues like getting a social security number have been postponed. I also felt that I lost my intangible things, for example, my familiar culture, language, career, personal connections, and right to live at ease. I began to feel as if I was ignorant and incompetent. My immigration was my own decision, but I could not stop imagining the anguish of the many refugees who were forced to leave their native country against their will. They unwillingly lose many things as if they were plundered, and are often forcibly confronted with being considered ignorant and incompetent in unfamiliar places by complete strangers. At the same time, I remembered Pope Francis' words that we are all immigrants moving toward another homeland. Come to think of it, all of us lose things against our will and live with the limitation of our abilities. Disease, aging, death, separation from loved ones, and so on. During the current pandemic, many people are realizing that we do not have perfect intelligence to know exactly what is happening right now and what will happen in the future. We try to find the light in a situation of poor visibility, but it seems helpless at times. St. Augustine regards ignorance and weakness as companion to all human beings, inevitably due to the sin of the first humans. As is known well, Augustine also utilizes the image of journey to the homeland as the analogy of our life in this world. We are all travelers wandering away from our homeland. We are like travel companions who travel together in the same ship of the present day. Our ship might be in the midst of a storm now. The words of ancient thinkers are, as it were, like stars shining in the dark sky above us. We observe and interpret the stars and try to find the steering angle we should choose. Augustine does not say that we will never reach the homeland because of our ignorance and weakness, so let us see the light of his words as helping us to voyage today. As I wrote in a paper for the edited book, Dr. Partis last year, lies have power, and people seem to enjoy disrespecting truth and sharing falsehoods. Politicians often tell false stories and still gain supporters. Internet media earns money by sharing false but shocking news. People can showcase their lives on social networking services with fictitious stories and selective photos. The terms post-truth and alternative facts have emerged and become popular. Now in the pandemic, false information have become a matter of life or death for many people. However, misinformation is even more complicated and lies are seemingly more rampant than before. Many of those who believed that misinformation have already been reported to have died. Some even believe that the coronavirus itself is a hoax and hold COVID parties and propagate conspiracy theories. The present pandemic of lies in our world could cause a lowering of the barriers preventing conspiracy theories masquerading as the truth. The result is not only some deaths of who believe these lies, but they could unintentionally threaten the lives of other people. Regarding the psychology of those who believe conspiracy theories, Discover magazine summarizes several recent psychological studies that the theories give believers the heady sense that they are special or set apart. People adopt conspiracy beliefs as a way to feel unique. This analysis reminds me of what Augustine says. People love truth in such a way, though, that those who love something else wish to regard what they love as truth, and since they would not want to be deceived and are unwillingly to be convinced that they are wrong. It is important to note that he says they would not want to be deceived. They have not been completely diverted from the truth, nor become totally unrelated to it, because they still love truth in the way that they do not want to be deceived. However, they give precedence to what they love as being truth rather than the truth itself. Unwillingly to be convinced that they are wrong, they do not try to re-examine themselves. They put their pride above the truth. Are those who believe something false else as being the truth just victims of false information? It is interesting that both Augustine and modern psychological analysis coincide in suggesting that those people have such a mentality of putting themselves, their pride, and desire to be unique above the truth. Augustine does not merely criticize such a mentality in certain people. After the above statement, he demonstrates his own process of self-examination. Through the examination, he clarifies that his desire is sometimes deceptive. For example, when we have an appetite for food, it is sometimes difficult for us to discern whether the desire is for health or only for pleasure. As a result, we could unwillingly ruin our health by eating too much. What Augustine describes is that the desire for pleasure deceives us so that the judgment by our reason goes astray. Augustine says that it is frequently hard to tell whether proper care for the body indicates that further support is needed, or deceitful, pleasure-seeking greed is demanding what will gratify it. Or so it seems to me, though I may perhaps be deceived. Yet sensuous gratification, to which I must not yield my mind, for fear it grow languid, often deceives me. Is there nothing left to say but that I'm deluding myself and not acting truthfully? Through demonstrating his self-examination, Augustine leads us to pay attention to our own inner tendency to self-deception that would give precedence to our desire rather than to the truth. We all have the possibility of this kind of deception, and the deception causes in us an ignorance so that we cannot completely know even ourselves and our own weakness of will, that this diverts us from the truth, although we claim to love the truth. In the end of the self-examination, Augustine mentions the concept of lying. This statement clearly shows his understanding of how humans lose the truth by their own immanent self-deception caused by greedy desire. Quote, "You are the truth, presiding over all things in my greed. I did not want to lose you, but wanted to possess a life along with you, just as no one wants to tell falsehood in such a way that he or she does not know what is true. This is why I lost you." Augustine's focus on our immanent deception was developed through his argument on lying, beginning in his early writings. He mentions the concept of lying as being different from falsehood in his Soliloquia, and adapts the concept of lying when he interprets the sin by Adam and Eve in his first exegesis of Genesis. In 394, he writes De Mendacio, which is said to be the first book ever written on the theme of lying. His argument in De Mendacio that every kind of lie is a sin does not change even in his later works, for example, Contra Mendacium, Enchiridion. The argument that every kind of lie is a sin, and so that we should not tell any lie, might perplex people, because we sometimes consider lying to be useful and helpful. We easily imagine situations in which lying would save lives. For example, when non-Jews lied to the government in Nazi Germany to save Jews. Also, in the present pandemic, we see examples like this. In fact, there are accusations that Augustine's strict ban on lying is unrealistic, as I explained in my paper for the chapter in the Dr. Park case last year. I disagree with the idea that Augustine's strict ban on lying is unrealistic. I agree with the idea that he pays attention to the situation that one is involved inevitably in a sin, and admits a certain kind of permissibility in lying. In the Mendacio, Augustine interprets the scriptural passage, "The mouth that tells a lie kills the soul," and explains that the mouth is not one's physical mouth, but one's state of will. He says, "It is that he lies in his heart who takes pleasure in lying. But he cannot lie in his heart who through his speech so expresses something other than what is in his mind, that he knows he is doing evil solely for the sake of avoiding a greater evil, and knows that both evils are repugnant to him." Augustine distinguishes between those who utter falsehood with pleasure from those who utter falsehood with displeasure, and regards the latter as not telling a lie with the mouth in his or her heart, although she or he tells a lie with his physical mouth. Augustine finds a certain kind of permissibility in one's mindset that is not pleased with telling a lie, as this mindset signifies his or her love towards the truth that is God. He considers the mindset of a person who tells a lie willingly or unwillingly as a criterion for discerning whether the person is a liar or not. His argument, finding lying in one's inner state, accords with the argument in Confessiones that we saw above. However, whether one tells a lie willingly or unwillingly, the result seems to be the same in that the lie that is uttered is the same. Is there any difference in the result when, for example, a politician tells a lie to citizens willingly for a public benefit, as opposed to when a politician does the same unwillingly? I would like to present 3 results of telling a lie willingly, according to Augustine's argument. 1. Loss of true happiness. Augustine says of the human soul that it will be happy when it comes to rejoice without interruption or hindrance in the very truth, upon which depends whatever else is true. The truth we all love is what we rejoice over. You cannot rejoice in anything even when it comes to you, if you do not have the mindset to rejoice over it. When you tell a lie willingly, you will drift in the wrong direction that loves the lie. Therefore, as far as you have the mindset to rejoice telling a lie, you will never live in true happiness. 2. Cause of great evil. Many tiny sins, if they be neglected, kill. Tiny are the drops that swell the rivers. Tiny are the grains of sand. But if much sand is put together, the heap presses and flushes. Bilge water neglected in the hold, that the same sin as a rushing wave. Gradually, it leaks in through the hold, and by long leaking in and no pumping out, it sinks the ship. When we says tiny sins, Augustine signifies sins of tongue, sins of thought, sins of intemperance in things permitted. You may be pleased when you avoid greater sin by telling a lie. However, if you have a swelled head and tell the lie willingly, the mindset you have can bring about a greater evil. Interestingly, Augustine's warning accords with what the modern psychiatrist M. Scott Peck says in his book, People of the Lie. Peck points out that personal self-deception could create a great evil, and says that evil arises in the refusal to acknowledge our own sins. Three, loss of hope for healing. As we saw above, Augustine demonstrates the examination of his own desire in Confessiones, Book 10. Also in his earlier treatise, Soliloquia, he did similar examination, but there he asserts his self-confidence in overcoming sinful desires. Conversely, in Confessiones, he emphasizes the weakness of his will and the difficulty of knowing himself and overcoming sinful desires. And he concludes Book 10 with an argument for Christ. He says, with good reason is there solid hope for me in him, because you will heal all my infirmities through him who sits at your right hand and intercedes for us. When you are pleased, although you turn yourself from the truth by telling a lie, you do not recognize your sin. You do not recognize your inevitable ignorance and weakness as you put yourself above the truth. As a result, you will not then seek for healing them. It can be said that Augustine's examination of himself is a demonstration of the way to find the hope. Augustine's understanding of immanent deception intimately relates to his hamartiology and Christology. How do we use our words? We are often involved inevitably in a sin, even when we believe that we act for a good reason and the result of the act seems to be good. It is difficult for us to judge whether the act is actually good or not, because we human beings do not precisely what the truth is, nor what the ultimate goodness is. Thus, when we accept Augustine's strict ban on lying seriously, it almost makes us hesitate to speak. However, Augustine himself continues to speak. In the beginning of Book 10 of his Confessiones, he declares to do the truth through confessions. Confessing is the act of speech or writing by which Augustine is able to examine himself and recognize his actual state of being. It is done in front of the truth. He says, O truth, everywhere you preside over all who turn to you for counsel, and to all of them you respond at the same time. The expression preside over is praesides in Latin, which originally means to sit in front of something. Augustine thinks of confession as a dialogue with the truth within himself to prevent himself from becoming a liar. Having a dialogue with truth is not beneficial only for oneself. Augustine finds benefit in it also for others. By expressing such a dialogue through verbal or written words, he confesses also in the ears of believing men and women the companions of my joy, and sharers in my mortality, my fellow citizens, still on pilgrimage with me, those who have gone before and those who will follow, and all who bear me company in my life. Augustine thinks that the words spoken or written when one confesses encourage people to love the truth together and to recognize our inevitable weakness and ignorance and have hope for healing by Christ. Augustine finds utility in words to change others' minds, prompting people to do the truth and not be liars. Then, how do we use our words among people who do not love the truth and do not share our joy? In Confessiones, book 12, where he interprets the book of Genesis and examines others' interpretation, Augustine points out that there are people who say, Moses did not mean what you say, but what I say. Yet they do not deny that what each of us says is true. Augustine criticizes such people, saying that they are proud and without having grasped Moses' idea, they are infatuated with their own, not because it is true, but because it is theirs. This reminds me of the people who insist that facts that are inconvenient for themselves personally are alternative facts. They do not deny others' statements, yet they do not think deeply enough about truth, insisting simply that their statements are alternative facts. Augustine also expresses that they arrogate truth to themselves as private property. People who want to have the truth as private property have a mindset that does not agree to share the truth with others. If everyone had such a mindset, a relativist mindset, everyone's love would go in different directions, and there would be no chance for us to enjoy the unity of truth, God, together. For this reason, Augustine does not give up challenging their minds and criticizes them by using words. From these points above, we can draw several conclusions about how we might use our words for peace and justice in a world where lies are rampant from Augustine's argument. 1. We can use our words in the dialogue with the truth within ourselves. It is not an inner monologue. The inner dialogue is for recognizing our real state, including our inevitable ignorance and weakness. Confession prevents us from being a liar by our inner mouth. 2. We can use our words to speak to others with the words that we hear through the inner dialogue. The words in confession help us to enjoy the truth together with others, because those words lead people to their own inner dialogue. Recognition of their own ignorance and weakness will invite them to listen to the other's ideas. 3. We can use our words to continue to speak also to the people who want to regard what they love as truth and do not want to share the truth with us. Augustine does not admit relativism and do not abandon sharing the truth with them. Augustine, who focuses on his own deceptive inner state, sees that those people and himself share the same corrupt nature, natura vitiata, as human beings. He thinks that everyone is our travel companion in the same ship to the homeland. Pope Francis also continues in the same vein. We are all immigrants moving toward another homeland, and perhaps we will all arrive there, and no one will get lost on the way. In our world, where lies are rampant, Augustine does not merely lament the situation. He finds hope in the fact that we have words which fit to love truth together with others. We use our words both for telling lies and for searching for the truth. Augustine shows us how to use our words to create a peaceful world. Augustine not only teaches us the evil of lying, he also helps us to understand how fortunate we are to be able to overcome evil. Such a blessing, a gift from God, can be found in our words, which connect us with the truth and with other people by love. That's all. Thank you for listening.
Professor Makiko,
Yes.
thank you very much for these inspiring messages about Augustinian thought and his vision about lying, and how has this affected the world, how sometimes this affects politics and different dimensions of human life. For all of the audience, I would like to remind you that the topic of this presentation makes part of a research chapter by Professor Makiko Sato, which was published in the book Augustine of Hippo as Dr. Paches, Studies on Peace in a Contemporary World. This research, it's published and it's available at the online and the website of the Augustinian University Press. You can access through www.editorial.uniagustiniana.edu.co. So we invite you to access this reading and get more insights on this information. Dr. Makiko, we've got a couple of questions our audience would like to ask you, so I'm going to allow myself to make these questions for you so you can provide an answer from your perspective and your experience and research on Augustinian thought. Uniagustiniana Professor Julio César Rodriguez Garcia would like to know if it is possible to wish happiness without loving the truth.
Okay. I suppose this question comes from the idea that the love of the truth is a kind of reasonable or the kind of work by reason. As I also I said that the dialogue with truth is a love of the truth, so it needs to use our word. So this question, I suppose that this question comes from the idea someone who will not be able to use their reason, or someone who don't know language or words is possible to desire happiness. I think I don't have a clear answer for that now, but but in the 15th book of the Trinitate, Augustine says that Augustine explained the differences of the words. That means the spoken word and the words, spoken words, but in our minds, silently. And also, Augustine says that there is a words that doesn't. There is a word that do not belong to any language in our mind. So that word doesn't connect to our precise language. So by that words that does not belong to any our languages can connect or have relationship with words, with the word, with the truth of God in ourselves. So by this way, to desire happiness and be true happiness will be available by ourselves. This is my answer.
Okay. Thank you very much, Professor Makiko. We have another questions from our audience. Dr. Peter Steiger, he asked the following question. Since lying is linked to speaking, does Augustine ever say anything about the benefits of being silent?
Sorry. Yes. Yes. As for, I also writing this. I'm preparing this lecture. I was thinking about the player, but I didn't mention about anything the player that is done silently in our minds. But as you know, for example, in the beginning of the Magistro, Augustine mentions the player in our mind, and also Confessiones, Augustine expressed a lot of prayer in the book, and so the words in a prayer spoken silently or not silently, the prayer is I think Augustine actually thinks that the playing of the player is helpful to, not helpful, or the very fundamental thing to prevent being a liar for us. But the player, I think the player should be done by the words that was heard from the truth. Is necessary. So the as I showed, the dialogue with the truth is very fundamental and the first thing to prevent being a liar. And so the prayer also could be, prayer also should be done by the words that we hear from the truth innately. That is my answer.
Thank you very much, Dr. Makiko. I will allow myself to make one last question that we got on our YouTube chat. This is from Father Enrique Eguiarte from the Augustinian Order. He asked the following questions. How do Augustine life have an influence on his attitude about lies?
Okay. Yeah, what occurred in my mind now is the his experience of his being Manichaeist, and yeah, sometimes Augustine said call Manichaeist liars, and actually, as you know, Augustine was attending and have sympathy to Manichaeism in his early days. And this experience also very influential, I think. And also, in Soliloquia, Augustine discussed about what is true and what is false. And the argument on what is false, Augustine seems to notice the very importance of thinking programs of lying. And so very early, it means in his very early years, he already started to think think about lie. And also in his later days, he developed his idea. And so not only the experience as a Manichaean, but also his many experiences would influence his idea online.
Dr. Makiko, thank you very much. On behalf of Augustinian University and all of our staff, we would like to thank you. We really appreciate your participation. We know it's kind of early in the part of the world you're right now, so we really appreciate you have joined us today for this important event and have shared your thoughts about the study you have developed around Augustinian thought, about his influence on modern civilization, and this particular topic that has become kind of neglected in important dimensions of society. So once again, we really appreciate, we are very happy you could have joined us today, and we invite you to attend our next conferences to be held tomorrow and Thursday and Friday. If you can join us, it will be great.
Thank you.
Please have a good day and hope to keep in touch with you. Para toda nuestra audiencia, les agradecemos su participación en este importante evento. Lamentamos los incidentes que se presentaron con la presentación de la profesora Pamela. Trataremos de compartir con ustedes una presentación que ella realizará también en torno al tema de las mentiras, analizadas desde el punto de vista de San Agustín y de las perspectivas de este importante pensador. Aprovecho también para invitarlos. El día de mañana tendremos la presentación del padre Enrique Eguiarte Bendimes, quien nos estará hablando acerca de la migración desde la perspectiva de Agustín de Hipona. El padre Enrique Eguiarte hace parte de la Orden de Agustinos Recoletos y cuenta con vasta experiencia en estudios sobre San Agustín y particularmente en el asunto de las migraciones. Así que los invitamos mañana a partir de las 9 de la mañana a estar conectados a través de este canal para escuchar la conferencia del padre Eguiarte. Me despido por el momento. Espero que la presentación de la profesora Makiko haya generado un espacio de reflexión en torno a este tema tan importante, la constitución de las mentiras y la influencia en nuestra sociedad. y esperamos que las próximas conferencias sean también un espacio para reflexionar desde la perspectiva de San Agustín y su pensamiento acerca de otros temas de impacto para la sociedad. Me despido por el momento y agradezco su asistencia. Esperamos verlos el día de mañana. Muchas gracias.